Good morning and welcome to Saxley Farm in Hampshire, situated between Stockbridge and Andover on the lovely Andover series chalky loam soils, where we are hosted by Matthew Reed of the John Reed Partnership and working closely with Syngenta on malting Barley. Unfortunately this year we have not been able to have any events here due to the restrictions placed upon us by COVID-19, but you may have seen the market link we did with both Matthew and Mike Tufnell of CS Commodity Solutions a week or two ago. This morning we're just going to look at the varieties and try and give you a guide as to current varieties and look at a few future ones. And as you can see, we're starting here with a few from the past. Just a very quick look at Golden Promise on my left and Plumage Archer on my right. If nothing else, it serves to show how far plant breeding has come in the last few years. Still a commercial opportunity for Golden Promise, used by brewers in Yorkshire and some distillers, so still has a commercial outlet. Plumage Archer we've looked at and tried to rekindle, but really it's not something that we want to get too involved with, but I think a few brewers looking for different angles are looking to use it. But as you can see, it's a million miles off where we need to be and where these modern varieties are. So we'll move on now to have a look through current commercial varieties and look at a couple that are coming through that will be of interest to you. Here we have Concerto to my left, which was the first. It led on from Westminster and has been a real benchmark variety in terms of yield and quality for distillers with very high extracts. Been a great servant, but now on the wane. It's been overtaken by varieties we'll come to in a minute. Last year I think the UK industry bought about 25,000 tonnes of Concerto. Still a home for it for those who really want to stick with it, who get on well with it, but actually we're moving on, and in fact it's big decrease in Scotland this year as these newer varieties come in. Talking of old stalwarts, Peppino, which has been a great servant to us, bit like Tipple and Optic before us. It stood the test of time, and actually down here, certainly in Hampshire, from what we're seeing this year, it's performing exceptionally well again, and farmers really like it as a variety. And if you want to stick with it, we will still have domestic homes next year in the UK for 2021, and I'm sure there will be export opportunities. It will become a bit of a niche variety, and European maltsters will still look to take it and to use it. So if you really like it, no reason to stop. So we move on to two brewing only varieties. RGT Planet, been a real stalwart, a good variety, very high yielding, big demand. I think the UK domestic industry last year bought around 250,000 tonnes. It's a brewing only variety, so bought purely for brewing, and of course a lot of shipping out of the south coast. A lot of cargoes of Planet went out last year. As I say, agronomically very good. You need to cut it when it's fit. None of this going away for a week. Especially we've got thunderstorms forecast now going forward, so it's not a variety that stands up too strongly to being weathered at harvest. But again, big demand, good variety, and of course very high yielding, very strong agronomically as well. Cosmopolitan on my right, looks a cracking variety, high yielding, but I think it's one of these varieties that's just going to fall between two or three stools. It's a brewing only variety. We thought it might have a bit of a niche as an export barley. We're waiting to see whether we can sort of create a bit of a niche for it for export, very little domestic demand. So I think, unfortunately, it's going to be a bit like Sonnet of old, in that it's sort of great farmer's variety, strong agronomically, but I don't see a big future for it for malting. Here we have Diablo from Limagrain, who have been behind some of the better distilling varieties. They bred Westminster, Concerto. Diablo's their latest offering. Cracking variety, again, has full approval. Seems to be a bit slow to get approval for brewing, but it's fully approved for distilling. Be quite a big variety, I think, in Scotland going forward. High yielding and very good agronomics. Again, you know, looks great in the field, but I'm not sure it's a variety, you know, because it hasn't quite got where we need it to be on the dual purpose angle of brewing and distilling. I'm not sure it has a role to play in England anyhow, just for the moment. SY Tungsten is the latest offering from Syngenta. Again, looks a really useful variety. High extracts. It's provisional approval for distilling. It's going to go through its brewing trials. Very high yielding. It looks to me to be the full package, and could get right up there behind Laureate. I'm sure the issues and the supply side problems, which we'll talk about shortly, with regard to distilling demand, are going to hold it up a bit, and thereby it may sort of lose its slot. But certainly one to watch, and we'll keep you informed as how it performs, and keep an eye on the AHDB website as to how it comes through harvest. SY Splendor is another great variety out of the Syngenta stable, and we've been eyeing it up as a bit of maybe a straight Propino replacement. It's a brewing only variety, may have that sort of niche market going forward, where the European maltsters, where they're getting enough Planet out of mainland Europe, are looking for other opportunities and other varieties. And if we see Pepino start to slip, might be an opportunity here for Splendor as a brewing only variety. Very high yielding, I think it's the highest on the list now. Very strong for brackling. Looks a really good all-round variety, as you would expect from Syngenta, and very robust agronomically for things like mildew. Need to watch it on Rhynchosporium, but just need to watch this variety. We've got some commercial crops, and actually a bit of we've got a trial going through a domestic maltster this year as well. So just like SY Tungsten, SY Splendor is one to keep an eye on. To my right is Laureate, which has now become the sort of benchmark variety, certainly in the UK. I think last year combined it took just over 50% of total purchases in the UK. We've also got export opportunities for it. It's a dual purpose variety, so it's fully approved for both malting and distilling. So if you're a grower who can get the on the chalk soils, who can achieve the lower nitrogens, the sub 165, it's a great opportunity. Latent demand, and even in a year like this, where we've got a huge barley crop throughout the UK to get rid of, and the impact of reduced demand for both brewing and distilling, low nitrogen Laureate will find its way into there'll be some good latent demand for high quality Laureate. I think the thing to mention on all these varieties is the quality of the actual grain, the grain size that we're seeing. We've seen it in the last few years, and we're seeing it again this year on the right soil types. And I know this year's not a year to draw many comparisons, but grain size of these varieties, a lot of them are in excess of 98% retained, sub 2% on the 2.25 screen. So they're really big, bold grains, which obviously serve the maltster and the brewer and the distiller very well. So I think that sums up where we are with these varieties. Laureate and Planet are the two staples, but as always we've got some good ones coming through, and we'll keep you fully in the picture as we go forward as to how they've done and what opportunities we have as a company for them all next year. As always with malting barley, every season seems to throw up its own set of challenges, and for the second year running, following an elongated dry spell and then late rains or rains in May and June, you know, crops have sprung back to life again, and we've got this secondary tillering issue which seems to be worse in different areas, but again, different people have taken a very different view of how to manage it, ideally avoiding the use of pre-harvest glyphosate, because, you know, especially out of the south coast, we do have opportunities to export malting barley into mainland Europe, which will mainly end up with a lot of it will end up with German brewing companies, and they do not want and will not take barley that has had pre-harvest use of glyphosate. So we as a company and the end receivers will be carrying out a lot of residue testing, but ideally people have avoided the use of it, and actually this lovely weather that we've had for the last couple of weeks has evened the crop up, as you can see. And where you do get these grain ones going into store, as we saw last year and as we've seen many times, they will dissipate out in store with a bit of low volume ventilation, and over time it's amazing how what you put in does not reflect what you take out. So actually we're pretty relaxed about it, and I hope that the domestic industry and shippers, when we start shipping barley into Europe next month, we will find that there will not be a major issue. If you do have any issues, please do call us, as a lot of people have, and we will keep you updated. Market wise, as we said in our previous piece, which we did, as I say, with Matthew and Mike, we have, whichever way you cut it, we've probably got in excess of 8 million tonne barley crop in the UK, reduced domestic demand for both malting and distilling as the industry tries to pick back up to where it was pre-COVID-19 in early March. That could take quite some time when you hear of all the peripheral issues surrounding that. So at the end of the day, we've got a big feed barley crop to export, but there will be some good opportunities for good quality malting barley. You've got all the dynamics of crop 2021 cropping to build into that. You've got the dreaded B word Brexit, which now sort of looms large, so that will allow us certainly to get a lot of exports out of the country pre-December the 31st. What happens beyond that will be interesting, but as we've seen this year, with the quality that we can produce, with the varieties that we've got, and with extreme global weather, there are some good opportunities and absolutely every reason to stick with both winter malting barley and spring malting barley, especially with the professional growers who grow it every year and do extremely well out of the crop. It has a tremendous future. So I'd like to just wrap up to thank Syngenta for all their hard work in putting the trials together, Matthew Reed of the John Reed Partnership for being a really great host again, which we'll ask him to do again next year, and hopefully we can make a lot more of this tremendous site, and we'll hopefully add a few more bits and pieces in, and of course to Jeremy, our young cameraman. Thank you, best of luck with harvest, and look forward to speaking to you.